audits, entered into an agreement with the Village of University Park to reconcile all bank accounts established and associated with and by University Park during May 1st, 2014, and ending April 30th, 2016. Upon entering into said agreement, IRH Development solicited and contracted with accounting personnel, municipal financial experts, a forensic accountant who reconciled and reviewed over 80 bank accounts, which 74 were verified to be actual open accounts during the period specified in the agreement defined above. And they are actual bank accounts. In our efforts to provide exceptional service, we reconciled accounts through December 31st, 2016, providing the village with 8 months of reconciliation so that the community's concerns regarding the financial viability of the village are adequately addressed and that the information provided is current. This reconciliation process was coordinated with John Townsend, acting village manager, Jacilia Kelly, finance staff, Daryl Bolton, IT manager, and various banking institutions. IRH Development requested financial records, including bank statements, copies of processed checks, check registers, the chart of accounts, TIF agreements, and various other supporting documents that provide accurate documentation that confirm the results of this reconciliation. We have identified each bank and the different accounts owned by the village with the balances as of December 31st, 2016. Our report shall provide information on each bank account and recommendations to the manager to manage the village financial resources. You should also find the job descriptions of key financial department employees as described in the village's codified ordinances, the Muni Code. Village ordinances identify the personnel responsible for supervising and performing those tasks that would have precluded the circumstances now requiring a forensic audit. Additional reconciliations, TIF reviews, and the completion of 2 delayed annual audits. Viewers are reminded that the process of the reconciliations was postponed by some degree because we did not receive the bank statements until late. The dates that we received most of the statements were U.S. Corp gave us statements by January the 24th, 2017, Midland Bank, February the 3rd, Old Plank, March the 14th, and then the final statements were given today. This evening, I received them about 6 o'clock. So to follow in this report, you'll find each bank identified. You'll find Old Plank Trail Community Bank, and you'll have 14 accounts listed. There were 14 accounts at Old Trail Community Bank. These accounts were reconciled for the period of May 2014 through December 2016. It is our recommendation that you combine all bank accounts to no more than 6 accounts: general fund, payroll, town center, hazmat, GC operations, and special purpose. The deposits for the special purpose account could be for all remaining accounts. The accounts which are combined into special purpose should be identified by account numbers, which identify the fund. For example, revenue received for the relief account could have an account number of 4520, scholarship fund 4530, justice fund 4540, etc. The general fund account should transfer money into payroll account to cover all payroll and related expenses. At the end of each month, the ending balance should be 0. If the town center account is a TIF account, the fund should be in a separate account or an account with other TIF funds. Any wire transfers or checks which are written should have a clear explanation of how expenses related to the TIF and ensure that the expenses is a TIF eligible expense. Next, we have U.S. Bank. There were 18 accounts at U.S. Bank for the reconciled period of May 2014 through February 2016. It appears that all of the accounts were closed in January 2016. There were no closing statements provided for many accounts. 17 of the 18 monies were moved to Illinois Fund. One account, EP clearing account, was transferred to the Illinois National Bank. We have reconciled the motor fuel tax fund through January 2016 with an ending balance of $311,192.95. As of this date, and after several requests, which we just told you, we just received that information today. We were also given documentation supporting the board's approval to transfer the $250,000 in February 2016. It is not clear why monies were moved to Illinois Fund. These accounts are maintained by wire transfers in and transfers out only. The U.S. Bank has all banking functions for checking accounts. The recommendations for the next group is the Illinois Fund. There were 17 Illinois Fund bank accounts reconciled for the period of February 2016 through December 2016. These funds were transferred to Illinois funds in February 2016 from U.S. Bank. It is not clear why the monies were transferred from a bank with full checking account services to a bank with only wire transfer abilities. Transferring the accounts except the TIP accounts to one of the general fund accounts provides the village with much more flexibility when processing expenses. The TIP could remain an Illinois fund in a separate account for each TIP district for a higher interest rate. And monies could be transferred corresponding checking accounts for expenses from appropriate checking accounts, TIP districts as required. Next, we have Midland States Bank. There were 24 Midland States bank accounts reconciled for the period of May 2016 through December 2016. It is not clear why these accounts were open and why their accounts remain open with a balance, in some cases, of $1. The monies in the TIP accounts were from tax deposits from the state. Monies from the Illinois Fund can be transferred to Midland Bank when necessary to pay for approved allowable expenses. All accounts can be moved to the general fund and maintained by a general ledger of accounts. For example, revenue received from the Young Broadcasters, the account could have an account number 4550, the Scholarship Fund 4530, the Justice Fund 4540, etc. Recommend that only one bank outside of the Illinois Fund be maintained by the village. It is not clear the purpose of the employer's expense tax account. All related payroll expenses should be paid from the zero balancing payroll account. The village should only maintain one payroll account. There were payroll transactions in both accounts during the reconciliation period. However, no payroll records were provided. Therefore, it is not clear who was paid from the payroll account from Midland States Bank and who was paid from the payroll account at Old Lake Trail Bank. The recommendation for Illinois National Bank is where we have the e-pay clearing, is that you consolidate this account with the funds in the e-pay clearing account at Old Lake Bank. Attached to follow that, you will have the ordinances which are listed that list the actual employee job description, and so you can take that information. You can take that information from there and figure out who was responsible for making sure that these transactions happen. We also want you to be mindful that the conclusion for all of this is that our research and reconciliations indicate that no evidence warrants the village's need to have 74 accounts. The reconciliation shows that there was an innumerable amount of missing and incomplete documents, including but not limited to bank statements, copies of checks, reported and voided checks, many of which were received the last week in March 2017. We also learned that there were no monthly reports, no reports or records of wire transfers indicating deposits or withdrawals and wire transfers. Therefore, these items had to be created manually. We also discovered stale, unprocessed checks that had been held and presented for payment as late as a year after issuance. The review of all the village's bank accounts revealed a random number of accounts, 74, a large number of voided checks, and the failure to reconcile bank accounts for many years. It appears we went back past 2010. There were duplicate payroll accounts, multiple payments being made to unidentifiable persons in a short period of time. We also noted improper financial controls and reportings of transactions, coupled with the lack of coherent financial guidelines and policies, and staff training resulted in the breakdown and lack of financial propriety within the finance department. The review also noted an excessive number of wire transfers in a 2-year period of time from TIP accounts to various accounts without supporting documentation and a reasonable explanation. Also, it appears that the TIP funds, motor fuel funds, and other funds designated for particular use were used to supplement payroll and other miscellaneous accounts. As I stated in the last report, over $14 million was transferred into either the payroll or general fund in a 2-year period of time. Since then, during our final reconciliations, we've noted that over 500,000, actually over 800,000, has been transferred into either the general funds or payroll from 2010 from the motor fuel tax fund. The acceptable use of TIP funds are outlined in the Illinois Tax Increment Allocation Redevelopment Act. The use of TIP funds are monitored by the Illinois Comptroller through the filings of required annual reports by municipal governments. If TIP funds were used for the purpose not specified by the Act, then we recommend that the village replace these funds in a planned and timely manner. It is our recommendation that after the audit is concluded, a plan of action be put in place immediately for repayment of all improperly expended funds. Given the external investigations being conducted by the federal and state examiners and the reconciliations concluded by RH Developments, it is our recommendation that a forensic audit be conducted immediately to identify the inconsistencies and questionable activities in the ledgers, bank accounts, and reports. We also recommend that all TIP agreements be examined to ensure that they comply with the Illinois TIP statutes and that a payment plan be negotiated for funds owed to the TIP from various entities. A forensic audit will help identify and rectify practices that cause the financial difficulties and challenges that have plagued this village of University Park with and for an extended number of years. We believe a forensic audit, along with the implementation of proper policies and procedures, will help to transition this community for the better, as well as reestablish confidence in the village mayor, the manager, and the official board's ability to manage its financial obligations as required by state and federal law. A copy of this report will be given to John Townsend, the acting village manager, who will be responsible for distributing it as she deems in the best interest of the village of University Park, its residents, and the community at large. And that concludes my report today.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
If the Board of Trustees do not have any opportunity for we have no financial responsibilities, no signing or anything with these wire transfers. So who has the ability to transfer and manipulate money, open closed bank accounts and do wire transfers? Who is it?
I would not call it manipulation until that is actually discovered in the
Did I say manipulation?
But the village manager, your finance manager, and the mayor would typically be those people.
Okay.
And in yours case, the village clerk.
Okay. So you said between 2015 and 2016, $14.7 million?
Yes, about, and the treasurer. Is that what you said? Oh, and the treasurer, as I'm in authority.
So $14.7 million.
And the senior, you guys have a lot of people.
Okay, well, I'm not one of them.
Okay, and a senior, and a senior trustee.
Okay, so between 2015 and 2016, there are $14.7 million unaccounted for. Where did that money come from?
Tips.
Tips. All right, okay.
And then you had another $800,000, you had another $800,000 from 2010 to current, to actually February 2016, transfer from the motor fuel fund. Now, we know that the $250,000 went directly into payroll. Others were allocated. We have, a part of the forensic audit will determine exactly where those funds were expended to.
Is there any strange chance that we can recoup some of that money?
Recoup, it sounds like you owe somebody to pay.
Yeah, well, that's on you guys. I got clean slate, I'm good.
Yeah, so the tip agreements are going to be examined, and there may be a possibility that there may be some dollars there, we're not sure. That's the purpose of this whole forensic audit, to discover where the dollars and cents are, who owes what you guys owe, and who owes you.
And keep in mind, when you're talking about the responsibilities outlined in your municipal code,
Yes.
it is the Board of Trustees who have the authority and the responsibility to approve all So just keep in mind that, so you have to question, you have to question, folks who are coming to you, asking you to make certain expenditures. You have to question whether or not the funds are truly available. I remember the first day I walked in here, the question to us was, can't you use TIP funds for this or that? And all of that information can be found not only in state statutes, but if you just Google.
Well, I know it all, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but if you just Google those kinds of questions, the answers are going to pop up because there are just so many people writing about TIP funds in Illinois and especially in Chicago. So, I mean, there's a lot of information available out there for you.
Okay, now, Ed, you made a comment saying that it is the Board of Trustees' responsibility, and that's absolutely right. But what happens in a case like this, like she said, all these transfers were without supporting documentation, so that means those were done in the dark, basically.
Well, and that's what I'm telling you. That's why it's important to get your annual audits. When you get your annual audits, when someone comes to you with bills payable, for instance, from 1 month to the next, you've got to make sure that those funds are being expended for their intended purpose. And so I'm not blaming anybody. What I'm saying is that it's a shared responsibility of the entire municipal government to make sure that your funds are used for their intended purpose. And if you find people not doing that, then there should be consequences, and you have to deal with those things. So I'm saying that's what I'm saying. Not pointing a finger at anybody.
And it's essential that you have the supporting documentation to not only move those funds, but to repay them as well.
It's supporting documentation.
And here's a copy of the report.
Thank you.
The next steps with this document, some of the things that we have more people here than we typically do, and you may not have attended some of the different board meetings or the finance committee meetings. I highly encourage that starting with this report forward, if you have not been attending the finance committee meetings, please start attending so that you have a complete understanding of what's happening with your finances. We can't point fingers. We can just say that things were done inappropriately, but we're taking measures to correct them. Not only is that important, but some of the examples that are in here that we have a new bank, it's Midland Bank. The focus for having that bank was to get to where the bank doesn't have 74 accounts. They just have one bank. an ordinance was submitted and approved by the board to close down